Good evening, community. Good evening, family. Good evening. You are here with Juneteenth in Queens, our educational series. Very excited to have everyone with us. Thank you for coming. If this is your fourth night, I just want to thank you for your commitment. We've been doing this for the last week, and this is our fourth night. We have started last Tuesday. We did Freedom's Promise, Juneteenth Legacy, Liberation, and Path Forward. And then last week, Wednesday, we had Economic Apartheid, the Redlining Reality in Black America. Thursday, we did Echoes of Emancipation, Charting the Course of Reparative Justice. And tonight, this wonderful and exciting panel will tackle the power of Black currency. This educational series, this Juneteenth in Queens educational series, are brought to you by Elm Core Youth and Adult Activities, Voice, which is Voice of Youth Changes Everything, and our Assemblywoman, Alicia Hyman. I am Saida Dunstan, and I'm your host, and I'm the CEO of Elm Core Youth and Adult Activities. I'm going to kick it over to give greetings from our Assemblywoman from South Queens, Alicia Hyman.
Good evening, everyone. And I'm being a mom right now. I forgot my child had an orthodontist appointment. So I'm going to come back later and bring proper greetings if that's okay, Saida.
That sounds perfectly fine by us. It's what we love about community. We know how to take care of ourselves and we know how to keep moving. So we're gonna introduce our panelists. We have 5 panelists this evening. And so I'm gonna introduce them all. Their bios are much longer than what we can provide because we wanna get to the meat of this conversation. But we do want you to know who you're speaking with and who is speaking to you with a level of expertise and experience. So we have Miss Gloria Thomas. She works diligently in the Queens community advocating for crucial services for underrepresented populations, which includes business owners, older adults, and youth. She holds 2 master's degrees in banking and international business and the other in organizational psychology. She's currently working on her PhD in behavioral psychology. Gloria sits on the board of directors of Black Spectrum Theater, going on its 54th year. That is a huge Queens organization. Want to shout them out. Thank you for your service. She works as a private client banker for JP Morgan Chase Bank in Wealth Management. Then we have Silverson Benoit. See, I got it right, Silverson. He's an experienced branch manager and community advocate who has been with the Bethpage Federal Credit Union for over a decade. He has supported communities across Long Island and New York through advocacy for credit union support in Washington, D.C., participating in programs such as VITA and preparing community members for income taxes free of charge, volunteering with Ronald McDonald's Habitat for Humanity and the Inn. He is a proud American Haitian that is dedicated to increase financial wellness for all. He has a master's degree in health education from Stony Brook and is currently pursuing his master's in business administration. It is Caribbean American Heritage Month, so we want to big him up for that as well. This is what happens when Trinities are hosting. They can't help but find a moment to plug that. Then we have Gerard Goodlow. Gerard comes and brings extensive management background with over 10 years of experience in sales and the restaurant industry, coupled with a sociology degree. He was able to transition into the real estate sector. Gerard is passionate about community education and empowerment and has spoken on several panels at college and urban communities, addressing crucial topics such as home ownership, financial management for underserved populations. He also serves as an active board member for the Alliance for Families for Justice. Then we have Dr. Laquan Dice. He is a man of unwavering faith. I have to say that because he made sure when we talked offline, that was clear. He is a business consultant, a strategist, an entrepreneur, a collegiate professor, and a mentor, and a devoted husband and father. Happy Father's Day, a day late to all you men. All of you who father children, right? There's a lot of fathering to young people in a different way. Mr. Dice, Dr. Dice has executive leadership and business acumen is well known, backed by his remarkable 22-year journey in corporate America. He has excelled in various roles across multiple Fortune 500 companies. He serves as as an assistant professor at New York City College of Technology and a guest lecturer at Seton Hall University. He has these lecturing courses in advertising, marketing management, marketing research, business management, managing fiscal affairs, and strategic management. He has his doctorate in education in leadership and management policy from Seton Hall and a master's degree in business and workplace education from NYU. Kwame Egerton II. That means that there was two powerful men with that name. Ain't that something? In July 2020, he co-founded the Black Currency, an organization dedicated to fostering economic empowerment and wealth creation within communities of color. The Black Currency's mission is to create wealth by empowering the next generation of millionaires. We're going to talk offline, right? Through a holistic approach that combines financial education and emotional intelligence. The Black Currency strives to break down barriers to financial independence and create a supportive network that nurtures aspiring entrepreneurs and professionals, ultimately contributing to the more equitable and prosperous society. Welcome, welcome. We have a powerful five. I could give you the whole five fingers fist stuff, but I did it. So I'm really excited for this conversation. We're going to start up. I'm going to talk a little bit about the topic, and then we're going to open up to the questions if we are ready. We want to delve into the concept of Black currency, not just the financial capital, the idea of financial capital, but a holistic representation of the value brought to Black communities through cultural capital, creativity, and resilience. As we continue to discuss Black liberation for our Juneteenth educational series, we want to discuss how people who are literally commodified for the building of capital and the economic system here in America and globally, in a need to reclaim our humanity and for our contributions to be used to support our communities, we will discuss strategies for harnessing our power to promote economic justice, wealth building, and sustainability within Black communities, highlighting the importance of supporting Black-owned businesses, creating equitable opportunities for growth, and challenging systemic barriers. Even with the wide wealth gap, according to Nielsen, Blacks' purchasing power is projected to reach $1.8 trillion this year. We will challenge our panelists to discuss this history of this valuation of African people and their contributions and how we can utilize our greatest resource, us, to continue building Black currency in all arenas we are contributing to. Whew, sounds like it's gonna be a goodie. I don't know about y'all, but I'm looking forward. So as we have only one woman besides myself on the panel, I'm going to do a ladies first on this one, guys. I'm going to open this question up to start with Ms. Gloria Thomas. And then after that, by all means, no particular order, just jump in as you see fit. Can you please discuss why this topic is so important to cover as a part of a Juneteenth conversation? Why it should be a part of liberation and freedom discussions as a whole?
So I'm glad to answer that. We all on this panel should be celebrating Juneteenth because this means it's our independence. It's our independence for the freedom that is rightfully ours. And being wealth, to answer the question, I just want to state that wealth really is not somebody handing you a check. It's not someone saying, well, here's your inheritance, here is you won lotto. That can be done away within seconds. You can go to resorts and just lose it all. So what really is wealth and why this topic is very important is that we as a people are descendants and ancestral of wealth. We come from powerful kings and queens who were wealthy, but sometimes it was snatched from us. So we have to regain that power. And by that is getting education and learning to keep the wealth within our community, the wealth within ourselves. And we are the ones who are empowered to do that. It starts with us and coming up with a plan and having a financial goal. Now, naturally, depending on who we are and what we do, is the financial goal is going to be different. Now, I'm looking at these powerful men here, and it looks like we're all from different nationalities, but we're all one and the same. My goal might be different than the brother who has the family with the house. My financial goal may be different from the brother who is at Bethpage, who listens to families talk about how can they get money, and how it's really right within ourselves. We start with ourselves to learn what wealth is and what wealth means to us.
Thank you, Gloria. Someone else want to jump in?
Hi, this is Sylvan Benoit. To add to what Gloria eloquently put it, wealth has a variety of meanings for each individual. To be healthy, it does incorporate physical wellness, mental wellness, which is an area that's not really focused on in our community. It does go into financial wellness, spiritual wellness. So to be a healthy individual, you really need to tap into all of these sectors to really be balanced. As Gloria had mentioned, there's things outside of monetary aspects as far as being wealthy. And for me, I'm passionate about this topic just because there's so many gatekeepers in the Black community where I'm trying to break down those gates and actually make it a community again. We were kings and queens before. We had a lot of land. We had a lot of history. We have a lot of heritage. We have a lot of intelligence, opposed to a lot of the things that we are learning in history books, where we were considered less than the white counterparts, which wasn't accurate. I believe that getting back to our history, bringing back to that history to the youth, is very impactful for me. I believe that with education and forums such as this one, to continue to educate people, have open dialogue, where sometimes you don't necessarily have to agree, but we can understand different perspectives. I think having these type of conversations and really educating the youth as far as what Juneteenth is, and just even Juneteenth, we were liberated at a certain date, and then a lot of people didn't even know until several days, weeks later, that they were liberated. And that's all because of the gap in communication that we have amongst ourselves in our communities. So I think, these forums, and, it is one day out of the year on top of Black History Month, but this is something that just needs to really be focused on and elevated throughout the year, and just continue from us in different industries. Jared is also a sociology major, so he studies, the interactions between individuals and communities and things like that. We just need to continue to work together to ensure that we are, elevating each other, boosting up each other, having that communal energy.
Thank you, Sylvester. Does anyone else want to talk about why is this topic specifically so important to discuss during Juneteenth, and why is it a part of liberation and freedom conversations?
If I could add, I would say, in just making wealth as simple as many may believe it to be, financial wealth is simply having an abundance of valued possessions, having a lot of money, being rich. Why is it important for Black people to be rich? Because along with liberation, the power of the dollar allows you to have influence. It allows you to make decisions in your land. So it is very imperative for Black people to possess valued assets, if you will, or to have lots of money in layman terms, so that when there is a cause that needs to be altered, people will listen to us. We listen to the dollar in this country as a capitalistic country. So it's very important for Black people to obtain and maintain wealth.
100% agreed. Just to add as well too, this conversation just hasn't been had in the past, and I think that's a large reason why the wealth gap is what it is, right? If you look up the average net worth of a Caucasian family, it's 180,000 to 200,000, while for African American families, it's around 20,000. But these conversations have been taboo within our communities. You ask your parents just about how do they manage their money, right? How do they save money? How do they budget money? Questions about investing. They're just not had in the household coming up at all. So it's imperative for us to continue to have these discussions to be able to reduce the taboo around money, around financial management, around wealth building for Black and Brown communities within the U.S. in order to enact change. Also, too, we spoke a lot about wealth. For me, it's also about how do you break generational poverty, even from my own personal perspective, right? Like I have certain family members who will say, you know, you just don't come for money. That's just what it is, right? And that's just more of a mindset that just needs to be changed, right? We all have the capability and ability to be able to do the things needed to build that wealth over the long term. So really just asking ourselves the questions about how to break the mindset of generational poverty for families who do think that way.
Gerard, you're the last man standing, but
I'm the
I know
last man standing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together everything that everybody said. So I believe in the power of grab the person behind you. And I started my business working with customers that could barely close, where I would have to piece things together, right? And now I work with customers where they're crossing the finish line with $2 million, $3 million, $4 million. But I got into these rooms with people who are wealthy. So I would see there's like one or two different Black people who are at the head of the table. They make the decision. So I feel like a lot of times in our community, what we have to do is we have to reach back, right? And not just with youth. I think it starts with the core of the Black family. And when that core of the Black family is broken down and it's not divided equally, like our sisters are carrying the weight of a lot of our communities. And that is an imbalance, right? So as for men, we have to actualize our power. And if we stay in an abundance mindset, then the women behind us can follow our abundance mindset. And that's not to say that women cannot be in power. I definitely heavily believe in that. But when I walk into rooms where I see more Black women than I see Black men, that's a problem. And especially now with the circles that I run in, I'm like, no, we got to change this narrative. And if we actualize our power, and that's not showing up every day and having all this stuff, it's not that. It's what do you have inside? So like a lot of the things that I've learned are books that like people who have MBAs. They tell me every book that they have read. I've read every single book. And that was the power to change my business. So when I'm talking to wealthy people, we have the same language. So guess what they do? They tell me everything that they know. I said, no, teach me what you know. And then I follow back up. And as my business expands, they pour back into me. And it's not white people, it's actually Black people.
Right. I think you guys have said a lot of very powerful things. And I just want to highlight, if I can, a couple of things that were said that are very powerful. One, we can't solve poverty with poverty, right? So there was a conversation of like generational poverty. We cannot solve poverty with poverty. We do need to have an idea of understanding an abundance model. We talked about that last year, and how as people, Black folks, we need to hold on to the abundance model. I would also, as we talk about capitalists understandings, and the reason why we talked about as a people who are commodified, I also, as we're coming off of the last one, which was reparations, I think there's just got to be also this very clear understanding that this entire economic system was based on us being the commodity. And so at some point, our value and valuation of ourselves needs to be tapped into, because anything that was that valuable for them has to become extremely valuable for us. And so how do we use each other? As an anti-racist, we say you have a network, we want a net that works. So how do we create networks? Gerard, you talked about that at Works, in a way that we can support each other and to believe that there is Black wealth and then Black wealth's responsibility to the one pull behind, right? I don't believe Dr. Ice, when he says we need money, says just me, right? He said he's a man of faith. So that is all of us must have in order to go on. Our Assemblywoman has come back. I don't know if she's ready to be pinned to give, what were you calling it, Alicia? Appropriate or best or great greetings, but she's ready. So if the team could tag her in.
So sorry about that. I set several reminders for myself a day so that I don't forget. And the last reminder was 15 minutes before her 6:45 orthodontist visit. And so, speaking of the power of Black money, I realized, you know, even when it comes to healthcare, and I have healthcare, braces aren't included. So I had to make sure we got the appointment, got to her appointment. But I think about how powerful the Black dollar is. I think about how businesses frame us, advertise to us, deny us access. And so I just caught the end of this brother Goodlow talking here, and I'm really intrigued because I think social media is such a powerful tool for us when it comes to building Black wealth. So I will decrease and allow everyone to continue to increase and making sure that they get the information out for our people. Thank you very much, Saida and Elmcor.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. We've been doing this work with the Assemblywoman since she was able to get Juneteenth passed in the state legislature. And we've been really doing this. I'm really happy between her, Tanisha Morrison from Voice, and just happy to have her here. So the next question, what are some, I think, Dr. Dice, when you and I spoke, you kind of sparked this question. So I'm going to start with you. What are some of the not so conventional ways to think about generational wealth building? We know the absolute importance of the conventional ways, but can you take us beyond home ownership and college degrees? We know that that is the conversation that we have in community, education, and land. But what are some of the other things about generational wealth building that we're just not talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you allow me to push back on the assumptiveness in the question, because I believe one unconventional way is simply life insurance. Leave your family 10 times what you were making when you were on Earth. If you made $100,000, leave your family $1 million. If you made 500,000, leave your family $5 million. You can do more than 10 times. That's a simple way to leave wealth to the next generation. It's very simple. There is no mastermind meeting that folks are having, other folks are having, and they're executing ways to give wealth to their family. No, they're busy paying $50 a month and they're leaving $1 million to their children. That's one unconventional way. What I want to push back on the higher education, though Black folks are going to college at astronomical rates, record-breaking college attendance, Black folks aren't finishing college. So they're not getting the true rate of return on college education, especially young Black men. Young Black men are still graduating only at 35 to 40% college education compared to their white counterparts at 68%. So I think it's very imperative that though we've been talking about or having this conversation, we need to grow or graduate from just having the conversation to executing and obtaining that degree. A third one I would say is let's go back to our foundation. Let's get back to basics. Let's go back to vocational school. Americans are only going to vocational school at 16% rate. So the issue there is if Black folks were to go get a degree or, excuse me, a certificate as an electrician or an HVAC technician, they can start their own business. They can become an entrepreneur and have a true skill set that's needed in every house in America. So I would say life insurance it's easy. It's really easy. So you have a conversation and you determine what's the amount that you have. You know, 52% of Black Americans have life insurance, but 48% of those same Black Americans don't have enough of life insurance. So I would say life insurance, let's execute on graduating college, and let's go back to vocational school if college isn't for you. I think those are the ways that we can build out a plan and get it done immediately.
Thank you, Dr. Dice. Gloria, I see you had your hands up a couple of times.
Yeah. I'm going to try to keep this really brief because I see the time is moving on. I do want to say, I think Dr. Dice has a good point, but this is the point. As a banker, I see people who get inheritances. It may not be $1 million, but they get sizable amount. And I also see, and I was having a discussion with one of my peers who's on this line. I had a young lady who just came out of prison. Her father worked 40 years, and there's many of them like this, and I'm sure everyone can relate to this. He worked 40 years with MTA. He was dying of cancer. She cleared $385,000. So that's a pretty nice sum. He only owed $17,000 on the house. 17,000 on a house that would have been hers. Came out of prison, no skills. 17,000. She had 385,000. So this is almost like the person who got $1 million life insurance policy. What did she do with this 385,000? She told me, she threw it on my desk and told me to cash it. She took an Uber all the way down to Florida with 20 people and stopped at every city on I-95 and stayed in one of the most luxurious hotels. Bought her own engagement ring, bought a presidential Rolex, virtual golf course. She spent this money in 3 weeks. If you don't communicate, and this is what our ancestors did, because remember, our ancestors, their wealth was stolen. If King Mansa Musa had lived today, his wealth would have been a quadrillion, not a billion, not a trillion, a quadrillion dollars. But we can take nothing and make it into something. We are a powerful unit when we all work together. What we need to do is bring the dollar back to our communities instead of going out and buying stuff. And we need to educate. Yes, college education is great. I am an advocate of college education. But if we don't sit down around that dinner table like we did before we got 1,000 channels, before while television went off at midnight, and we sat around the dinner table and we talked and we said, what did you do in school today? What do you want to do? Back in the day when we grew up, and I think the brother who came from Haiti, I know his grandparents said the same thing. You cannot live here for free. You had to go out, get education, go get a job. I don't care what you did, but you got to work and bring some money home. They taught us the value of money. With social media and all these other things, we lost the family unit. And we are a power when we work together. And we got to bring that back. We got to educate our children and learn this is money. But yes, you got to learn, what do we do with this money? Because sometimes when people get money, they blow it. They blow. You have to educate them. Buy property, buy houses, bring it back to the community. Everybody gets a business. Where are the Black businesses? Yes, I am on the board of directors of Black Spectrum Theater, but I have to go out and try to advocate. We need this theater. It cannot die when Carl Clay dies. We have to keep it going. So we're looking for the youth to come in and be on the board and run this thing. And that's how because we need to communicate with one another. And we do that at Chase. We have what we call a first banking account for someone who can open up a bank account at 6 and teach them about you earn money when you do a chore. Because that's what we did. When we got allowances, we had to do chores. And then we got money. We didn't just was given money. And that's what we have to go back to.
Okay, Cash App. So I don't want to stop you because I see you on a roll, but I do want to make a little bit of room. Gerard, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so I'm going to use home ownership, but I'm going to take it and spin it in another way. So one of my customers was purchasing a home, and I said, how are you going to get your down payment? He says, I'm going to cash in some of my stock. Keep in mind, that was a very foreign thing to me. I never knew anything about it. And then the more rooms I got into, the more I heard about the power of stock. Every time someone would purchase a home over $1 million from me, they would cash in their stock. They would cash in this. They would cash in these things that would just be reinvested back into other vehicles, and which at the end of the day is going to continue to earn them wealth, right? So I think that when it comes to money, yes, we talk about buying a house, but most of the time it's our grandmother's house that is getting passed on to the family. It's not everyone in the house buying something. Or when I hear home ownership, it's like, I got to get my best house. No, you don't have to get your best house. If you can afford $200,000, you buy a house for $200,000 and you continue to move that needle. I've seen it with one of my customers. This is what I can afford. Now this customer owns multiple properties, right? And it's just about, this is what I can afford and this is what I can do. But then looking at the power of the equity inside of your house, that I have a home in this bucket, I have my education. And I think a lot of times with our education, we don't advocate for ourselves. I'll be on the phone with people. I'm like, you have not gotten an increase every single year at work. That is pathetic. Sorry to say that. We are not beggars. We are supposed to be at the top. And what you do is, how do I max out my bonus? 3 of my friends called me last week and I'm like, I negotiate salaries all the time. Well, my salary, right? I was like, what is your value proposition? And most of the time, we never don't take the middle. They will say, okay, so if this is what you would offer somebody with this skill set, I have another power of skill sets. So this is what you should offer me. I significantly, as Black people, we know we what do they say? We work harder than everybody else. No, yes, we do work harder, but now we have to learn how to be more divisive. So when we come from, not coming from a place of lack, when we go on an interview, we come from a place of abundance and confidence. And when we speak that way, we demand the highest pay. So that's how I feel we can start to increase.
Thank you. So what's in Kwame?
I agree with all of the panelists. Just to piggyback on some of the key topics that I take away from some of their contributions was entrepreneurship is something that is definitely going to elevate our community. I think it ties into what Dr. Dice was mentioning as far as trade schools, just because when you do go to a trade or you get a trade from someone, whether it's your father or you actually go to school to get those certifications to make sure you're in a better position. The entrepreneurship is definitely important right now. Cryptocurrency is one of the digital market is one of the things that's flourishing right now. We talked about social media, different handling, developing things like that. I'm not sure the age group of some of the people that are on the panelists, but if you think of like a Black Planet, that was coding. People didn't see it as coding. We look at monetizing your likeness on Instagram now. People are becoming influencers by promoting things. I think the Black culture definitely has a strength in the market where people are looking at what Black people are doing, whether it's the way we dress, the food that we're eating, the selections that we're doing as far as music. There was a big uprise as far as people in the country sector, but there was in the past, if you did your history, you would know that a lot of Black individuals were famous country singers and thrived in that area. But one of the focuses is entrepreneurship, having ownership. So not only ownership as far as homes, but also ownerships in businesses. LeBron James' manager is one of his friends. He put his friend on, as we talked about, reaching back, putting him in a position where he could manage him, and he actually did it successfully. Working within our community when we're entrepreneurs. So if you need a dentist, go to a Black dentist. You need a person that makes suits. I have a friend that makes suits. Go to this person. And not just because they're Black, but because they do the job well. We want to make sure that we are, yes, referring to each other, but we also have to hold each other accountable to make sure that we're, excelling and actually taking things serious. When kids are smaller, they usually say doctors, lawyers, or teacher or something like that. Breaking away from that. If someone is a creative, making sure that we're fostering that skill of theirs, because everyone learns different, everyone has different brains. If someone can sing, fostering that. There's a opportunity for everyone in different sectors, and we need to break away from, like you just said, the customary expectations and going to college, because college isn't for everybody. Some people go to college to get multiple degrees, and like Dr. Dice, I believe, said, a lot of people aren't using those degrees. So now you're in debt, and you're still not in the position that you need to be in. So entrepreneurship is, I believe, the key, one of the driving factors to being successful and leaving wealth, along with financial planning. It's not how much you make; it's how much you keep. Also,
that's right. That's right.
100% agreed. A lot of good points are made. I kind of wanted to, I guess, echo Gerard's point. He mentioned this about the stock market in itself and being able to leverage that specific asset to buy another one. With the stock market, I think just based on like conversations with the community within the Black currency, people are looking to get rich very quickly within the stock market, but it's more of a progressional, slow wealth building process.
That's
right? So being able to communicate that to folks, getting them comfortable with the law of delayed gratification, being able to teach things such as dollar cost averaging, starting small, right? You can take $10 per month, right, and invest it into the stock market and have that compound over time, right? And then increase that amount more and more as you make more income. But it's really being able to build the habit of saying, all right, I'm going to pay myself first. I'm going to put some money into savings. I'm going to take a portion, put it into the stock market, and staying consistent with that over that long period, 10, 15, 20 years. It's not getting rich within a night, but if you want to be able to pass down that portfolio to future generations, being able to build that skill set as well as that habit. So the number one wealth builder in the U.S. Has been real estate. We touched on that a lot. We know that is something that is top of mind for people. But right after that is the stock market. Over that 20-year period, if you look at the S&P 500, the 500 biggest stocks within the U.S., it's 100% return for those specific stocks in itself, right? So being able to get people comfortable with invested in the stock market. If it's not individual stocks, you can invest in ETFs. Again, whether it's the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ. So a group of stocks to kind of hedge your bet, to be more diversified versus investing in just one single company. So a whole bunch of different strategies, but again, building the habit, having these conversations and getting people comfortable with the idea of investing in the stock market, because some folks within the Black community can assume it as a risk, right? Like, I don't want to lose my money. I work so hard for this cash, right? I'm working 50, 60 hours a week, working multiple jobs. Like, I'm not about to invest it and lose it, but I think investing is not a choice at this point, right? Like, it's something that is mandated, right, for us to be able to truly change the narrative for future generations. So re-emphasizing that point. There's other things. There's like peer-to-peer lending platforms out there. There's a platform called Solo Funds. So being able to take any additional discretionary cash that you have and loan it to a small business who needs cash to be able to grow, and then being able to get a return from that specific investment in itself. So just adding that as an additional, like, non-traditional way to growth funds. Trademarking, just adding that one as well too, right? A whole bunch of great ideas out there, a whole bunch of successful Black inventors, but being able to trademark and protect that idea. That way, if anybody else uses it, you get paid from them leveraging your concept. And then publishing, right? A lot of Black people within the community are into music, right? Into a whole bunch of just different creative outlets. So making sure you own that specific product, making sure you own that specific entity. That way, whenever it's, played anywhere else, you're paid for it as well too. So a whole bunch of different non-traditional ways to build wealth outside of the atypical college education, as well as home ownership. So I want to add those points.
Very powerful, powerful points, y'all. I hope y'all listening in the community. You have your pens and your papers down, and you're taking notes, because there's a lot of dropping a lot of science on here this evening. I just want to remind everybody in the community, because of what we're saying, please don't forget that you can, if you're on the Zoom, you can drop a question into the chat. And if you're on Facebook, you can also drop a question so that you can ask a question to this panel who are giving out jewels today. Kind of made me want to pivot a bit, so I apologize. You guys did not get this question, but what happens in conversation is if I get inspired. So it was a conversation that I've been having. Laquan, when I say it, you'll be like, yeah, we were talking about it, sis. But this conversation kind of helped spark a couple of things that I wanted to highlight what you guys were talking about. When we talk about trades and vocational schools and things like that, I do think it's something we need to remember. Once again, we had a stronghold on, and I'm going to keep saying, and we built this country based on our skill sets. When you go to South Carolina, you go to Charleston, it's an absolutely beautiful city, and the buildings are gorgeous. But the ironwork is phenomenal. And those were Black men who were blacksmiths who have made the property now work 5 and 8 times what it was at the time it was built. And so when we talk about generational wealth and what can happen, like when we are participating in things, it's really important. So Kwame, when you talked about trademarking, that is huge, because we talk about the theft of the body, the African body. It's also a theft of our intellectual property repeatedly over and over and over again. And how do we hold on to that is really important. And lastly, my son, who's 20 years old, I was like, maybe he knows something. He was talking about stocks just today, right? We were talking about gambling, and I was telling him, you want some money to gamble? Because you know these kids be doing all this stuff on the thing. Now they be betting like they don't even go to they don't got to go to the gambling spot no more. And I was like, you over here gambling? And he was like, yeah, but I'm about to get into stocks too. And that's also a form of gamble. So I need you. I was like, ooh, check myself. And so I think it's important to also recognize that young people are paying attention to things. And so we need to make sure that education goes out and it goes out accurately. And so what I said to him is also remember that same place where stocks were started, the first thing sold there were Black people. And so, you know, making him also feel from a reparations perspective, that is our space and we should reclaim it as well. So a lot of good things, just want to highlight those points. But it brings me to the question that's not on your question box, but I want to talk about it because y'all were talking about it indirectly, is why don't we lean into Black nepotism? Why, when we hear that term or of nepotism, we kind of fear, you know, we pull away from it. But you talked about going to the Black dentist, making sure that we are able to, Gloria, you talked about, you know, making sure our funds is being generated within our communities, that they're generational, not just wealth, but generational currency is making it through our communities and is generating throughout the community. But when we hear about nepotism, we're like, I can't give my son, you know, the business, or I can't get my uncle in the space. Why are we so resistant to Black nepotism, and what should we do to correct that? Gerard, I'm gonna let you go because you had your hand, you blowing.
Yo.
Go ahead.
All right, you know what it is? We don't trust that it will work. So because like if you're a starting person, right? Like and you're going against the grain. I'm an entrepreneur. So I will tell you, my first customer was white. I only had white customers for a very long time. It wasn't until I started selling what quote unquote looked like the right type of property that Black people started to work with me. And by the time I started to get an influx of Black customers, I had already changed my price point up. I specifically said, this is the type of customer, because I don't want to prove that. But with me, I always support Black owned businesses first. I look at the creator and I'm like, how do I work across? Like if I know someone in this circle, like Dr. Dice and I have spoken on panels before, right? And I'm like, he has something in him. It's a unique gift. I didn't qualify that gift. It was the first time we spoke on it. And I told him, every time I go on a panel, you speak so well with conviction. So I want to bring him in, right? But we don't trust each other enough individually because sometimes we don't trust ourselves. So because we lack the courage to take the risk, we then push that into our community. And then we end up working against each other. I was sitting today with a seller. She told me, I met with a Chinese person. I met with this person. Then she said, I met with another Black person. And she says, you're a Black guy too. And I was like, why do you feel that way? She says, because I noticed that our people lack the knowledge. I said, lack the knowledge of what? I work at the #1 firm in the US that is invite only. So you have to produce. So you tell me why. And I said, if you're going to pay a white person 2%, you are paying me 3%. Because I have a value add. But I think a lot of times because we don't trust, like I said, it starts with the core and the center of ourselves. And a lot of entrepreneurs see that versus with white people, they could say, I'm going to start a cupcake business. And they're going to go to the school and get everybody around them, little Becky and John and all them, and everybody will buy from that one cupcake business because they believe it's going to work. And I think, how do we change that is more so fighting against it. Why do we have to wait until the person becomes the best? Because we have to also realize once that person raises their price, they will probably price out from you where you guys won't even be in the same network. So you won't even be able to touch them. So I think a lot of times we need to trust, like I said, trust yourself first, and then we can work within our communities. And just if it's starting and they don't have the right labels, who cares? But also too, we aim for perfection because that's what we have been taught. If it's not perfect, I cannot put it out.
Go ahead, Dr.
If I could add, and this is plainly a theory, I believe that Black nepotism is uncomfortable because we're so used to not owning anything. We're so used to not having wealth. Just imagine you're in your house and someone, and my family's Jamaican, you're Trini, we got Haitians on here. We know when you come into the house, you must take your shoes off. And if someone keeps their shoes on, just imagine your posture when you're telling them to take their shoes off. That power, that force, that influence that you have is because that's your domain. That's what you own. So you're comfortable enforcing how you want things to be. And then you can have your 3-year-old daughter walk in with her shoes on to her room, and you're looking like, well, you didn't tell her to, this is her house. That's nepotism. That's nepotism at its best. Because we don't have wealth, because we don't have riches, because we don't own anything, every time we make a decision, we're still looking at the boss to see if he agrees with it. When we own, when we acquire possession, we get comfortable with the decisions that we make, and we should not care what others would think because we own it. And because we own it, there's nothing anyone can do about it. We're not used to having wealth. We're not used to owning anything. Therefore, we're not used to appropriating our nepotism.
Anyone else want to talk about why don't we lean into Black nepotism?
I would agree with Dr. Dice, only because I'm actually from Long Island, so we do have Caribbean people, we do have African Americans, but as far as the Black ownership with the business, you may see the Black face in the managing it, but they don't own the actual business. So as he admit, so what I'm assuming that he's alluding to is that we don't have that representation to even go to as far as like a referral. Sometimes, for example, as I had mentioned, mental health. I had a friend that was telling me about a negative experience with their therapist, and now they're like, I'm kind of stuck. I don't even have another person that can kind of relate to me because they wanted someone that was African American. So due to not having access to so many of these resources, and sometimes even the management of the business kind of draws you away, where there's a running joke when you go to like a Caribbean restaurant, as Dr. Dice mentioned, the food could be amazing, but the service is it's unbelievable. You walk in there, it's as if they should be paying you to go in there.
Not training spots. I just want to say that's not training spots.
I mean, there's been a few places I've been to, different nations, and and that's why you keep going, because even if you don't get that good service, that food is gonna make you come back that next week. And we have to really, and I also mentioned investing in ourselves, being accountable. If you want to be a mechanic, if you want to be a doctor, you want to be a finance person, be the best person that you're going to be in that domain. Sometimes we don't maximize our potential, which causes gaps in service, as I had mentioned before. Jared had mentioned, he upcharges. If they charge him 2%, I'm charging 3%, and that's because I know my wealth. As Dr. Dice said, you having that confidence behind the talent that you have, you're your best advocate. So being the best at whatever you're doing is what's going to really cause people to really, give you that referral. Because if you give me a shoddy job today, I might not tell my friend to go to you because I'm not confident that, you're going to do the job the way he expects it to be done, or the way that, our white counterparts in the same domain may provide that service. So I think that's why we don't.
You guys can give us a quick response to Black nepotism, because we do want to let community voice in. So I know we have questions. I know I don't even have to look. I know we got questions, because this conversation would require questions. So Gloria, Kwame, if you wanted to give us a quick.
I would just say, a lot of times it's because of fear. And again, this is maybe not the panel discussion to talk about this, but sometimes we have a fear of somebody's being better than we are. But this is the point. Forget about all of that, because that is real. Sometimes we don't want to see our brothers and sisters get ahead. But then again, on the other hand, I just want to use this example. There's many Chase branches on Merrick Boulevard. I'm on Merrick Boulevard. Why is that customers come to me? What is setting me apart And just like I'm saying, I'm certain of all my brothers here, it's because of something within you that makes me want to come back to you. And that is a sales technique, or that's a personality, or is that your confidence? Whatever it is, that spark that's going to make me want to come back to you. And that is, I don't care if Jared, I don't know what he's selling, but because of the way he looks and the way he's believable, I don't know what he's selling. It could be 10 times better than somebody next door. I'm coming back to him because of the way he made me feel. People are going to always remember how you made them feel.
Do you understand? I can tell she's for behavioral psychology. Just want y'all to know.
Okay.
She's getting
how you made me feel. I will buy whatever you're selling because of how you made me feel. Everybody wants to be made to feel important. It's saying that person's name. It's making you feel important. That's going to make you want to buy my product or buy my service. And that's how you get people to come and support you.
Kwame, you want to?
100, yeah, a lot of good points made, for sure. I think as far as my perspective, I think there's a certain level of empathy, and I've had this conversation before, but I think there's a certain level of empathy needed when purchasing products from that Black-owned business, because as we know, the playing field is not even. If you look at venture capital dollars in the US, about 1% go to Black and brown founders, right? So even when it comes to the infrastructure needed to grow and scale a business, Black and brown businesses have not had the right resources to even be able to do that, right? So being able to have that empathy as a consumer and understanding that over time, right, the product or service is going to continue to get better, and being able to keep that at the back of your mind when purchasing that thing is something that's essential. Gloria touched on just like the buying power within the Black and brown community. It's going to hit $1.8 trillion this year, right? That's a huge number, huge. So being able to understand that buying power, being able to understand the businesses within your community or even globally at this point that you can support, being able to shift your mindset when it comes to the products that you're accustomed to purchasing, right? Who have had the backing, who had no systematic racism in place to be able to prevent them from being able to scale, right? Over the past hundreds of years within this country. But being able to shift that mindset, shift your purchasing power to those Black and brown businesses, and having that empathy up front. If that service is not the greatest, right? Understanding that you purchasing an item from that company now is only going to help them to get better and better over time. So I think that empathy is something that is essential and important to be able to get Black and brown people to participate in nepotism.
That is a great answer to close before we open up. And I do want to just say, as we talk about Black nepotism, we have to lean into it. We really do. I want to suggest that we don't have to be the best for other people either, right? When we talk about we be the best, it's that kind of concept that we have to work 5 times as hard as our white counterparts to be validated. And I'm going to say we spend a lot of money in stores buying clothes that we know is not the best, buying products and food that we know are not the best. And so to Kwame's point about some empathy, as an anti-racist, we don't blame people, we blame systems. There's systemic reasons why people are not in the positions that we would like them to be. And so we need to lean into Black nepotism because as Dr. Dyson and I, when we spoke about it offline, we know the greatest businesses ever created by families were slave owners. And I'm gonna say again, this is about Juneteenth. They leaned into nepotism and passed multiple generations of wealth that actually took away from us. We've got to lean into nepotism because we are our greatest resource. So Ivory, Francis, our community questionnaire host, by all means. We may only have time for one question, so choose wisely of the questions that you received, because these brothers and this wonderful sister has been, like I said, dropping jewels, and I just want to make sure that we could get one from the community out.
Yeah, so we got a few good questions, but I think we're going to go with this question. Are there unique trends in how Black investors approach the stock market compared to other demographics? And can you share some examples?
I'm just going to...
Go ahead, Gloria. Go ahead, Gloria.
I'm just going to start with this. It's a very simple concept. I heard Sister Dunstan talk about her 20-year-old son, and this is something I'm just going to say. If a 21-year-old begins to invest just $100 a month at 21 years old, and just keep doing that, just $100, by the time they turn 65, they can be almost a millionaire. Because what's happening is, you just look at, someone talked about this, the law of averages. It's $1,200 a year. Think, not even talking about interest. $1,200 a year at over 10 years. That's almost $12,000. You do this for the next 60 years and put it in a fund, in some sort of investment vehicle, which usually averages between 6 to 12% over the next 50, 60 years. What do you think is going to happen to that money? It's going to compound and compound and compound, just like when you take out a loan to buy a house, right? It's the same principle. You invest in yourself. You are a bill. Invest in yourself. And just $100. If you take $1 a week, just think about this. Stick an envelope, put $1 a week and just increase it. Week 2, $2. Week 3, $3. Week 10, $10. By the time you get to 52 weeks, you'll have $1,367 just by increasing it $1 a week. Do this by 5 envelopes. Do you understand where I'm going with this? This is how you build your wealth. It only takes $1.
100%.
Oh,
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the principle of what she's saying. I think the difference between possibly the way we or our young people may invest and they may invest, I think is just the strategy. We need to strategically invest in the stock market versus picking individual stocks and not knowing how to research the organization, not knowing how to read a financial statement, don't know what a PE ratio is, because college is not for us, but yet we want to go invest into a stock, but we don't know how to read the financials on the company. We don't know what a K-12 is. So it's very, very important, if we're going to choose not to be educated, that we have someone who is a professional, who's licensed, who's regulated, to ensure that we are investing. And I think Kwame mentioned this early on. When you invest into the stock market, you got to look at a long-term strategy. This isn't for short-term investors. Short-term investors, the difference between short-term investors and us is that they have an abundance of wealth. They're okay losing their money. Oftentimes, when they're investing, they can lose 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 because they're trying to make it big. Usually, we're trying to bet our last savings, and we're just hoping and praying that we get a rate of return. And that hope and praying ain't going to happen. So I think it's imperative that we're strategic, we're intentional around how we're investing our money, and even how we're investing to the stock market. Make sure that someone like Gerard is at your hip, instructing you on ways to go with the investing on real estate. So I think we just need to be educated and intentional around how and where we invest. And then it will work out. But even a good thing could be bad.
Kwame, I see you popping in.
Yeah, Dr. Dice said that so well. 100% agreed. I think as far as what I've seen, just like within the Black and Brown community specifically, when it comes to investing, is again not having that long-term mindset, as well as being able to pull the money out too soon. Right, the power of compounding is something that's extremely important. So you are going to have to let that money sit, right, month over month. Right, the market is cyclical. Right, like there's times where it goes up. There's times where it goes down. Like, don't let your emotions take advantage, right? If you have done the fundamental analysis of that company, looked at the financials, trust the leadership. It's a product that, people depend on, right? Just when it comes to their everyday lives, it's like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to buy the stock on sale when it goes down versus just jumping out and, trying to just take a profit or protect the initial investment in itself. So I just haven't seen folks necessarily just have the marathon mindset, and it's just been more of a sprint and pulling out capital way too early and not getting the benefits of compounding over time.
You have to keep it in a vehicle and let it sit. You can't, like you said, there's no instant wealth. You have to let it sit. and let it
Gerard,
grow.
you were
I'm gonna help our IG people out, social media people. Here you go. Wall Street Trapper, Earn at Your Leisure, and then looking at Robinhood. Now that totally goes against Fidelity. I have Fidelity too, but these are very digestible systems. And once you figure out difference between the ETFs, who pays dividends, and setting up what does your slow drip campaign look like? That's how I look at it. What is your slow drip? And as you listen to Earn at Your Leisure, when you're working out or when you're walking to the train, when you just put that in 10 minutes every single day, you should be depositing into yourself before you open up IG. Deposit into you. Turn on that Spotify. Earn at Your Leisure. They have so many segments. And that's how I actually learned how to invest in stock. Wall Street Trapper. And actually getting around other people too. So then eventually you'll hear the words like, I think Navient did a stock split, right? They literally did their stock split is split in half. And that doesn't mean that you're going to catch that run, right? That just means that you knew buying it at a discount. When Amazon, I made my biggest mistake. I did not invest in Amazon when Amazon was cheap, right? And I paid the price. And I think it was 2 years ago, Amazon went on sale. And as Kwame said, you buy things on sale. So these are vocabulary words that a brand new investor, you can't start investing until you catch on to this drip word. So those were the things. Earn at Your leisure, Wall Street Trapper. They're available on Spotify. And then also looking at Robinhood and downloading that, because you can jump on those monthly calls when Apple has a call, Amazon has a call, and you're able to catch those runs. So I want to give them the information.
That was a great.
I definitely agree with everyone. But I would like to also, as I think Dr. Dice had mentioned, sometimes some people are investing their last dollar. So I would also advise to really diversify your portfolio. Please ensure that you have 6 months worth of income saved somewhere. If you're trying to develop the skills, as Jared had mentioned, and Gloria had mentioned, even if you invest $1, $2. With these platforms like Robinhood, you can buy fractional stocks, so you can learn the methods. You can see the dividends that's coming in. You can learn those things, but please do not forget that it is very important to have some type of savings, whether it's for an emergency, whether it's for a down payment on your business, investing in yourself. Everybody's portfolio is going to be different because everybody's salary is different. You have to do what works best for you, but you do have to diversify that income. So the same way you put aside that money for the bills, put aside money for stocks, put aside money for that savings account, because that's how you diversify your income. And that's how, like I said, it's not how much you make, but how much you keep. So it's going to help you keep more money and build money. With the stock market, that is a very good tool right now. It's not a new product. It's been going on for years. But, for those of you that remember the stock tanking in the 80s, it caused a lot of heartache for a lot of people that was investing all of their money into that. So please diversify your portfolio.
One thing I want to mention is that Chase customers can use a vehicle on their online banking app. It's called You Invest. You can invest. You can be in charge of your own stock. We have advisors who can talk to you through the app, and you can even there's 800 number with just as little as $100. Okay, and maybe stock isn't for everybody, because remember, if you lose it, you lose it all. You may want to look at mutual funds, and there's different vehicles, but listen, speak to someone who knows about the market before you just go on. And that's just my advice. Go on, listen and read and learn before you even decide to go and invest. But You Invest is one of the easiest things that you can do right online.
Thank you, guys.
Financial advisor is definitely a good resource for everyone. Yeah. Sometimes it is free. So.
Close out, huh? I gotta close out, guys. I definitely do appreciate everything that you guys said. This panel was very, very powerful, and I think it speaks to that question of why this conversation during liberation is because we have, and as I listen to this stuff, I want to make sure that the community realizes that these brothers and this sister are not unicorns. They are not one in a millions. We do not perpetuate the belief that there's only one of us. We will not continue to have the belief process that there's only room for one of us. When we have an idea and understanding of what an abundance model means, it means it's for all of us. And so I just want to close with that understanding. And I want to thank Gerard Goodloe and Dr. Laquan Dice, Silverson Benoit, and Kwame Egerton II, and Gloria Thomas for sharing all of that wonderful work. And I want to also just remind you guys that tomorrow night at 6:30, we will be back to listen to Growing Patient Advocacy, Tackling Health Disparities and Substance Use in the Black Community. We want to talk on that specifically because of health disparities and also because Black men are dying at 5 times the rate nationally and no one is discussing it. And so the same way we're not talking about how we make money, get money, and create generational wealth, we're not talking about Black death. And Gerard, you said something very important about the fact that Black women are in certain spaces and it's up to us to uplift our men. And so I say, please come back tomorrow as we talk about what's happening to Black men in America and that particular health disparity. Not to be a downer, but to be an uplifter, because we're going to need funds to support us to do this work for our own community. And so remember, we are not new to this. We've been doing this. We've been building wealth for others for many, many centuries, and we are now talking about building wealth for ourselves. Good night. Thank you again for sharing your time. I will see you tomorrow night.
Peace and blessings, everyone.